Thank you. Thank you, Andrew. A couple things. Please don't hold it against me that I'm in marketing or that I have an MBA. I hope you forgive me for that. Thank you for making everyone promise that they're going to look interested. I really appreciate that, Andrew. And I want to thank Katja as well, because I do feel a little bit like a hummingbird with the story I'm going to tell you today. So I was really happy to hear that introduction. So welcome to the Business School. This is our new building, as you can tell when you walked in, that we're very proud of. I want to say good morning and welcome to all of you as distinguished guests. There are students here, academics here. We have leaders from business and NGOs. We also have Edward Santow, the Australian Human Rights Commissioner, and we also have Jamie Isbister from DFAT. So I really wanted to welcome you and thank you for being here in advance for your participation and in advance for the interested looks on your face that I hope you're going to manage for at least the next 10 minutes. I also want to, let me see, where's my, this is a brief but really heartfelt thank you to people who put a whole bunch of effort into today. So you just saw Katja Davin. I also want to thank Michelle Harden, Anna Norte, Louise Rose, and Ranjit Vula for all of the work that they've done. If you've ever been involved in something like this kind of event, there are thousands of little details, lots of big decisions, and they've done a great job, so I really wanted to thank them. If you don't mind, a little round of applause. Thank you. Just didn't want to get their names wrong, so I wanted to have my little piece of paper there. Last year, the Dean, Greg Whitwell, was here, and he talked, he would have spoken with a great deal of passion because what you're talking about today is very close to his heart. He would have talked about Plan B, he would have talked about the UN Sustainability Goals and how they really underpin what we're trying to do at the University of Sydney Business School. We were in the throes of putting together our 2020 strategy, which is a very ambitious strategy. But there are 6 pillars to it, and it has everything to do with what you're going to be talking about today. So he would have told you a little bit about the research that we do here and some of the courses and education that we do now. But what we're really trying to move toward is a business school, and our strategy document is business not as usual. It is underpinned by 6 pillars. I won't go through all of them today, but I do want to tell you about a couple of them because they're really relevant to what you're speaking about. The first is that this is what we would like to be by 2020. Some of this we're doing now, and we just like to be better at it. There is lots of aspiration in this document as well. But one of the things we want to be sure we're doing is educating leaders for the future who understand how important it is to be ethical, responsible, and to really look at the decisions you make every day and how they impact not just the people that you can see, but the people that you can't see. And that's really part of what we're building into not only our research, but every aspect of the education that students come and are experiencing here. The second is, so there's 2 deputy deans. One is on the program student experience side. Mine is the academic side, where I have to think about the second pillar that I want to talk about, and that's all about diversity. That we really want to be a school that promotes and encourages diversity, the kind you can see, so gender diversity and cultural linguistic diversity, but also all of the diversity that is much more difficult to see. So that's a variety of perspectives. Now, it's a kind of an interesting challenge because I don't know anyone personally, and I doubt that many of you do, who would say that they don't, it's a double negative, so it's going to be tricky here, that they aren't trying to encourage diversity, or that they at least wouldn't like to see diversity. And yet, when you look at the worlds that we live in, our organizations aren't as diverse as they should be, and certainly the leadership teams are not as diverse as they should be. So what's happening? On one hand, we wouldn't say that we don't want to encourage this, and yet we don't seem to be there. And many of you are probably already thinking, I know the answer to this question, but it has lots to do with unconscious bias. And from the research that I do, really a cognitive psychologist and social psychologist, the thing about unconscious behaviors is they're automatic and they're really hard to change. And even if you point them out to people, they often don't believe that they're there in the first instance. So I'm thinking, what am I going to do about this? So in wandering around in my like the hummingbird who hasn't figured out that there's water there that they could at least try to put on the fire. I was invited to be part of a delegation to go to the UN Commission for the Status of Women in March. And I went along thinking about gender diversity. But when you get there, first of all, if you ever have a chance to go to something like that, it is absolutely amazing to be around rooms like this, hundreds of rooms like this, filled with people from all over the globe who are absolutely passionate about changing the world to be a better place. But when you think about the problems that face women and girls, the same kind of problem underlies much of what we're talking about in terms of things not being just right in the world. Most of it people aren't trying to do. They just don't really know how to change it. And that was the situation I was in. And fortunately, I ended up in a few sessions where people talked about nudging. And I'm sure most of you know what nudging is, but it's these little tiny shifts in behaviors that you can find by reframing problems so that you're not really making it obvious to people what you're revealing to them, but slowly they start to understand and move in certain directions. And I thought, I've thought about nudging in kind of marketing ways, sorry, but I hadn't really thought about nudging in ways where you might encourage diversity and stop people from the unconscious bias. They gave me really tangible, concrete things that I could come home and do. And we've been putting that into place for promotion decisions, for recruiting decisions, but also I can see it now seeping its way into the everyday decisions that we make. So the reason I wanted to tell you that story is, and it works in perfectly with the hummingbird, is sometimes you're faced with situations that are huge and they can overwhelm you because you're not really sure how it is that you're going to resolve any of these problems. And if you start pushing a little bit too hard or making it too explicit what you're trying to do, then it can be, you can get some resistance and find yourself not really making the kinds of changes that you want to make. But there are other things that you can do. And finding out even about the little concrete, tangible nudges that you can make so that you're asking people in a recruiting meeting, okay, so let's go back and look at the list and figure out why we don't have this person on our short list. Why are we not going to think about this person further? Because what we usually do is go in and get rid of people to make the list smaller so we've got something that we can handle. But when you do that, you often get rid of people that don't look like you or people that you think might not fit in. But you're not trying to do that. But if you ask people questions like, why don't you want Susie on the list? And they say something like she won't fit in, and you push a little bit further, you finally get to the point that the fact that she doesn't look like you is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. So you can start moving people in a direction. I've done what I always do lecturing, by the way, and not used any of my slides. So here we are. There it is. So if you want to Google something, Move the Elephant, it's all about inclusive nudging. And I think you can really find analogies there for all kinds of behavioral changes that you might like to make. But again, it's not that people don't want to be good people, but they don't necessarily realize that the things that they're doing are getting in the way of those kinds of decisions. So I wanted to really just leave it there and thank you for being here, for being passionate, as I'm sure you are, and I hope it's a really productive meeting where you learn lots, but also meet people that you'll continue to network with and exchange your little nudging techniques or the other things that you've found that really help you to make a difference. So thank you very much.